I think Boston is actually, we're in a little bit of a special and unique position in that if we talk about chefs, Boston actually has like quite a great history of strong female role models for chefs to look up to, whether it's Lydia Shire, whether it's Barbara Lynch. And in that way, I feel like we've been lucky in that as bartending trends follow kind of kitchen trends a bit, that in that same way that women have been kind of encouraged to take leadership positions. And, in some of the best bars in the city, it's a woman who's running the show.
Today, I'm pretty excited. For those of you who don't know, yesterday was a competition called Speed Rack, an all-female bartending competition that was held right here in Boston. Features the best bartenders in the region, but also the world, right? Naomi?
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, I sort of put you right there on the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. So Speed Rack has expanded. I don't know how many cities in the U.S. off the top of my head, but many, and has now expanded internationally. They've done Speed Rack in London. They've done Speed Rack in Mexico City. They've gone to Asia as well.
Yeah.
It's really, really wonderful, an incredible competition, empowering women all over the world.
So it's a fantastic global competition. I sort of put you on the spot over there, so I apologize for that. But let me now get to introducing you guys. Naomi Levy, you are the manager of Variety Bar right over in Bow Market, correct? The bar manager of Variety Bar.
Yes, sort of. I'm actually I'm a bar consultant working on a few different projects around town, Variety Bar being one of them, and I'm going to be working on the reopening of Noir in the Charles Hotel.
I think
Harvard
everyone
Square
who's been a lot of us who are Grafton Group veterans have a lot of fond and maybe some ill memories of there. Rachel Sholtes is joining me right here next to me. You are a bartender over at Shore Leave. What part of the city of Boston would you say that is? The South End?
Yeah, it's the South End.
And then also joining me is Hannah Morris. She is the bar manager of Shore Leave. So you are the brain behind all of the great drinks that people drink there, correct?
I like to think that it's a team effort, but I get a final say.
Don't be humble. Yeah, don't be humble. Your coworkers aren't here. They don't have to be humble in front of them.
I'm here.
Yeah. I figure you two are kind of like on a team together. You guys came to the interview together, so.
We're in cahoots.
Exactly. I think the first thing that's kind of on my mind, I want to get to the competition. I want to talk a lot about hospitality, but the thing that I think is on my mind right now, might be on a couple other people's minds, is there has been a lot of news in the past couple days, specifically pertaining, I don't want to raise any more people's anxieties, but pertaining to a virus that's going around. I mean, have you guys felt the impact of just the news, the way that the media has covered that? Has that impacted your business at your various establishments?
I think that today was probably the first time that I've noticed a pretty aggressive impact. Just people not wanting to come out and interact with other people, which is, it's hard. It's hard to do that. It's hard to operate a business, small businesses that rely on people coming in. So today was the first time I've seen the impact of that. In the recent weeks or so, it's kind of been, the hot topic. You hear everything that happens at the bar. You hear every conversation. We hear every conversation you have.
You mean the bar's not like a force field?
It's not.
So you saw when that person came in with 2 different dates on the same night?
We've seen that. But it definitely, you hear that. Definitely heard a lot of conversations, but I think that it is going to greatly impact restaurants, small businesses, and our fingers are crossed that it won't.
I mean, I remember when I worked in the restaurant industry, actually bartenders wash their hands fairly frequently, right?
Constantly.
To get to the point that there's actually a fear that if you wash it too much, right, that not to get too gross, but your skin might fall off, right? That is a genuine fear that bartenders experience,
It's
right?
called bar rot.
Bar rot, yeah,
It's a big
exactly.
name, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like if you want to be safe, these guys might be the safest people to be around right now. But anyway, yesterday was Speed Rack, is this big competition. Let's just start off for people who don't know, what exactly is Speed Rack?
So Speed Rack is an all-female bartending competition where people pay to attend the finalists competing against each other in a round-robin speed competition, making drinks. All of the ticket sales benefit breast cancer research. And not breast cancer awareness. I think we're all aware of it. But breast cancer research. So there's a lot of sponsors. A lot of them are liquor companies. There's some sponsors that aren't, but most of them are. And so every single thing that is in that building is donated. And there are raffles. It's a big party. And then you get to watch people make drinks really fast.
Yeah.
Really fast. Myself and Rachel did the preliminary rounds, which last about 50 seconds to a minute on average.
50 seconds. How many drinks are you supposed to make in 50 seconds to a minute?
4.
4 drinks?
Yes.
Now, for perspective, how long would you say it takes I want to say a person, because an average person would have no idea what they're doing. How long would it take an average bartender to make one drink?
I think it depends. It depends on the bar.
Yeah.
You know, there's definitely different levels of kind of volume and style of bar, but I would say anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute in terms of like an actually polished drink. And to clarify, these preliminaries, which happen actually before the public get there, they are like get ingredients in glass into another glass as quickly as humanly possible. Then when actually you move on to the actual competition and you get onto the stage, now we're talking about it's about 2 minutes of your life. So about 30 seconds a drink, and then you're expected to actually be putting a drink out that you might actually be willing to serve across your bar.
And what are you sort of being judged on when you put out this drink? Is it pure speed? Is it presentation? Is it taste? Is it kind of a little bit of all of the above?
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you forget a straw in a drink with crushed ice, they'll add time.
Oh,
to
really?
Your final time. Like
Oh, so you're being docked
details.
by adding time onto it.
It's literally as if you're on a service bar. You're putting out drinks to go out to the public. They need to be just like exactly as you would serve them to people who are paying money.
So are you guys service bartenders when you work on your bar shifts to prepare for this?
Yeah, I mean.
Rachel got to.
Yeah. Rachel, since you're apparently the resident service bartender, what exactly, for the laymen out there, what does a service bartender do as opposed to the other bartender working that night?
Yeah, so in addition to talking to the guests in front of you and making them drinks and making sure that they're having a great night, you're also getting tickets for the tables in the actual restaurant space, so you're the one that's making all of the cocktails that are going out onto the floor to folks who are not sitting with you at the bar.
In Speed Rack's an all-female bartending competition. Is there a special reason why it's an all-female? Why is there a focus on female bartenders in particular?
I think, without fully speaking for Ivy and Lynette, who founded Speed Rack, there's still quite a disparity, especially when you get to a certain level of bartending between women behind the bar and men behind the bar, and especially actually in the competition setting. And as someone who's done a lot of competitions, I can say women are certainly are underrepresented.
Yeah.
And so creating a competition that is just for women and all about women really encourages women to participate. And for, I think, a lot of women who then might go on to, do more competitive bartending, Speed Rack is usually their first stop.
Right.
Because it also, what they've done a really wonderful job at is cultivating a community and making it feel like we're all here for the same reason, and that's not, because I'm gonna win. It's because, hey, I wanna be better, I wanna challenge myself, I wanna build community with my fellow bartenders.
And I know that this happened with cooking, particularly with chefs, but there was sort of a time period where all of a sudden you saw a lot of female chefs coming out and, opening their own restaurants, being full-on executive chefs. Was there a similar movement within bartending, would you guys say, especially within the careers that you guys have had here in Boston? Was there sort of a surgence of women becoming bartenders? Was it traditionally thought of as this sort of boys club prior to that?
I think Boston is actually, we're in a little bit of a special and unique position in that if we talk about chefs, Boston actually has like quite a great history of strong female role models for chefs to look up to, whether it's Lydia Shire, whether it's Barbara Lynch. And in that way, I feel like we've been lucky in that as bartending trends follow kind of kitchen trends a bit, that in that same way that women have been kind of encouraged to take leadership positions. And, you know, in some of the best bars in the city, it's a woman who's running the show, and I think that's awesome. But I also recognize that there's something really special about that, and that's not necessarily the norm.
I think that with chefs, it's a little easier to track with the way that television has played a role in food. You have entire networks dedicated to food and restaurants and food culture, so it's easier to track that the rise of women within that aspect of the industry. And there aren't a lot of star bartenders.
Besides you guys.
It's just harder to like see that very distinctly within society because we're just doing our job and we're going to hire the best person to do that job, and then we're just going to keep chipping away at encouraging other women to do this, and I don't want to be on TV.
And sorry, if I can, if I can just add also that when we talk about women in bars, it's a little different than women in kitchens in that there are women behind tons of bars, and there's actually just as many women as there are behind men. It's about the, I would say, level of bartending that we're talking about, right? The hospitality industry in general has a ton of women in it. But it's talking about getting to these sort of upper levels that I think is the real differentiation there, where unfortunately in the kitchen, it's just nothing.
What would you say are the different tiers of bartending and I guess bars that you can go to? I mean, I think, for people who don't work in the industry, we know that there's dive bars and then there's sort of everything else, which a lot of people might colloquially just say there's the fancy bar. Is there different stratas that you would guys say when you work within the industry? Is there a difference between a Deep Ellum versus a Russell House versus an Eastern Standard, for say?
I'd put all of those fairly close to each other, but here's what I'd say. I'd say there's a difference between, let's just like be in Kenmore Square, right? There's a difference between Eastern Standard, Cornwalls, even the Hawthorne, right, which is sort of like getting to be really fancier, I would say. And Uno's, like at all four of those bars, you're gonna have wildly different, styles of bartending, levels of knowledge about different things as well. So, there's everything from, chain restaurants to, diners, to hotel bars, and then up to kind of, I think when I was talking about levels before, I'm talking about kind of these like highly touted craft cocktail places, which kind of, if we're talking in Kenmore Square, like Eastern Standard and the Hawthorne would kind of be falling into.
I mean, I feel like there's also, though, like, while there are these distinctions, and I think a lot of that comes down to, like, ownership and expectations of, like, the knowledge that the people behind the bar, like, what they're going to know, can they talk about champagne? Can they talk about classic cocktails? Can they talk about a specific spirit in depth versus, like, can they make you kind of the drink that you're looking for? But also, I think, like, the one through line for all of that is that, like, it doesn't matter if you only ever go to the bar at Uno's and then one day happen to walk into the Hawthorne. Like, you should still be able to walk in there and get something that you like and, like, have a good connection with the people behind that bar and have them maybe introduce you to something new, but at the end of the day, like, you're still getting the beverage that you are hoping to consume. And, like, when we talk about different tiers of bartending, that's, like, I think the one thing that we should remember is, like, a constant throughout is that it still comes back to hospitality.
How do you make someone feel comfortable if they're, let's say I walk into a bar, I've only drank Budweiser and a few craft IPAs, and I'm intimidated of the menu, I'm nervous to order something. How do you guys make people feel comfortable while at the same time really elevating this level of knowledge without completely scaring them and intimidating them out of the drink? Because I feel like that in and of itself is a craft right there. How do you do that, Hannah?
I very much like to meet them where they are. Like, I love a Bud Light Lime. Favorite shower beer. If I'm in the shower, I'm drinking a Bud Light Lime.
Only in the shower?
No, not only in the shower, but I'm just saying. It's finding,
Yeah.
I think that a lot of bartending is finding those points where you can connect with people and then have that as your jumping off point. So if someone's like, I don't know what the fuck is going on with this fucking cocktail. Oh my gosh, can I do all of that? Is that okay?
We'll edit it in post.
Just like saying like, well, what do you normally drink? And I'll tell you what we have that's like that I also enjoy, that you might enjoy, and maybe we can enjoy it together. Maybe I'll sit down and have a drink with you if that makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah. Are you allowed to do that?
Yeah, I'm the bar manager.
She makes the rules.
Okay, so, that's how making the person comfortable. But I think when I encounter bartending, I hear about all these crazy things. There's the Japanese shake versus the hard shake. There's all these various bitters, Angostura, all the way down to a cardamom bitters. There's a lot of stuff that I think a lot of people get very intimidated but are also in awe of. So I want to ask the most basic question, which you guys might think is a very dumb question. What is in the shake? I mean, is there really a technique to this? What I see so many different shakes around Boston. I've heard all these cool names for them. What is going on in that cocktail tin?
Ego is going on in that cocktail tin, and that's about it. It doesn't actually matter how cool you look when you shake your drink, as long as you are, as long as you are, properly diluting and chilling the cocktail. Everything else is just, we're on a stage, and so people want to look cool when they're on a stage, and that's really all it comes down to.
Yeah. Do you have a special shake, Rachel?
Not intentionally.
Yeah.
I've never watched myself bartend.
So, I mean, how does that, not to put some of your colleagues on the spot, how do you feel when people describe that they specialize in the certain style of shaking and that there's some magic into that's making this daiquiri that much better?
Good for you.
If that makes you feel good,
Yeah.
roll with it, pal.
Yeah. I think it's important to find a rhythm, you know, because if you do look very clunky back there, you are on a stage, and it's important to present yourself well and present yourself professionally. But past just kind of finding your rhythm and looking like, you don't have two left, hands, so to speak, is sort of, I think, as far as
The first few times I shook a cocktail, I literally shook my whole body.
Yeah. Did it make the drink that much better?
I'm sure it didn't. I'm sure I was more diluted than the cocktail was.
Yeah. Hannah, I want to go to you. I mean, you managed a craft beer bar, Lord Hobo, for a little while, and now you're over at Shore Leave, which is a nice cocktail bar. What was sort of the difference between not necessarily the clientele, but when you're interfacing with people who are expecting to go to a beer bar versus people who are coming to a craft cocktail bar? How do you sort of alter the way that you interact with the guest at the get-go?
I think that I also experienced a different clientele. And I mean, but with different clientele and people sitting in your bar, every person is going to be different. And I have definitely used different voices from one person to the person sitting next to them.
Like a British
tones.
accent or something?
Right. Just to maybe you'll not recognize me the next time you see me. So I don't think there really is a drastic difference in the way that I approach them.
Yeah.
It's just that I am producing a different product at the end of the day. But I still want my guests to be happy and comfortable and drinking something that they enjoy. Just as a PSA, if you don't enjoy what you're drinking, will you please tell us? Because we want you to.
Can you tell when people don't like it?
Yes.
And is that
know
really
when you're
uncomfortable
lying
when
when
they
we
just won't
ask
admit
you.
it?
Yeah. People will keep a drink that they don't like in front of them for so long, and I would rather get you something you want to drink because that's my job.
Yeah.
But to get back to your question, I don't think that I approach the guest any differently than I would at any bar that I work at. There might be a small difference of approach in terms of at Lord Hobo for a while when I worked there, I would walk up to a lot of people and say, "Hey, what do you want?" And it was funny. I don't do that often at Short Leave.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess what would you say are the biggest upfront differences between working at a neighborhood spot like Lord Hobo? Would you consider Variety Bar kind of a neighborhood location?
Absolutely.
And how does that differ with the kind of clientele that comes into an Eastern Standard or a Shore Leave or even a Russell House Tavern? And how does that influence the way that you store it? How does it influence your evening, I guess?
I think that everywhere, kind of to echo what Hannah was saying, everywhere you can't really treat your clientele as one entity, right? What really separates, the fine bartenders from the really great bartenders are the people that understand that each person that comes into your bar has a very different set of needs, is looking for something different, and by giving that kind of more personalized service person to person. And so, in a neighborhood spot, maybe that service is going to be a little more casual. Like maybe I'm going to prop myself up on the glass chiller and sit there and shoot the breeze with not cursing is so hard. Shoot the breeze.
You can.
I can curse?
You're
okay.
fine, yeah.
Great, okay. I'm like trying not to. I don't know.
This is NPR
Okay.
After Hours.
Oh, okay. This is after dark. Okay,
Exactly.
so anyway,
Literally.
I might pop up on, and shoot the shit with people, and I might be cursing more behind the bar, frankly, and just, a little bit more relaxed, both in my posture and everything else. And when I'm at a place that's a little more formal, I once had somebody ask me when I was at Eastern Standard, like, are you the same person when you're behind the bar and when you're not? And I said, yeah, pretty much. Just I swear like a sailor when I'm not behind this bar, And a neighborhood spot, I'm probably, going to be a little more casual. I'm not watching what I say quite as much. But other than that, in terms of the service I'm giving, yeah, there's that level there, but ultimately it's really about that individual service you're giving to each guest.
And Eastern Standard, when I talk to people about Boston restaurants, particularly cocktails, it's a restaurant that has a very storied history here in Boston. What was Eastern Standard doing before a lot of these other places that cemented it within this sort of legacy of Boston cocktails that went on to influence all of these other places? What was happening at Eastern Standard at that time?
Yeah, I mean, they were one of the earlier bars, certainly not the first. We'd probably, a lot of us would kind of credit the B-side here in Cambridge as being the place where actually,
Which
Jackson,
became Lord Hobo, correct?
Yes. Which became Lord Hobo, which, Jackson and Misty and all these guys between there and Green Street, kind of, that's where it really came out of. But Eastern Standard was in this really kind of grand way, in this brasserie way, in this way that was really meant to attract all sorts of people, and using fresh juices and having eggs in a drink and, and all of these kind of classic things. They were definitely well ahead of their time. And they opened in, I think, 2005. I started there in 2010, was there for 6 years. In 2010, when I started, if I made an egg drink, people would go, ew, what is that? In 2016, I left. They would go, ooh, what's that?
So the
there was a huge difference in
Yeah.
just a very short period of time.
And did you notice that there was sort of this proliferation of regular people getting really into craft cocktails, getting into fancier drinks? And I mean, you guys were all working at that time. What did you notice was changing when people would come to the bar? You mentioned the egg drink, but Hannah and Rachel, did you notice over time there was a difference in the level of knowledge that people had?
It just depends on the people's, there are, of course, always going to be people who, interact with a new experience. They see somebody else having a drink that's unfamiliar, and they get excited, and they want to, know what's happening there. And there's still always going to be people who see that, and they're like, Bud Light, please.
Yeah.
And, that, that's kind of just a constant given, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. But,
do people seem more open to these craft cocktails, though? Did it seem like more around that 2010 period, people would be a little bit more resistant to saying, I don't know if I want this drink with an egg in it, I just want my Bud Light, or I want my gin and tonic. Has that changed a little bit now?
I mean, we work at a tiki bar, and so I think that our menu scares people in a number of ways that there aren't that many tiki bars within Boston, and so ingredients like guava have thrown people off. But then we try to offer things that are a little bit more
approachable.
Yeah.
more approachable.
What exactly is a tiki bar, and I guess by extension tiki drinks? Because it's a very friendly sounding term, so I don't know why anyone would want to
Right.
go away from it.
Just in general, a tiki bar is something that provides an escape from reality. That is what the intention was when they were brought back to America, and from people's experiences in the islands of the Pacific, was to recreate that. And in that, they generally do really well in cold climates where we're 3 flights down under in a basement and it could be 20 degrees outside, but you can come inside and have a pina colada and listen to some steel drums and just pretend like you're on vacation. We don't have TVs. The cell phone service is terrible.
Is that intentional?
Not intentional.
See, when you said we're 3 flights down, I thought you were still trying to paint the image, and it's like pretend you're going 3 flights away, like really far away. But that is sort of it's an escape and a getaway,
it
right?
should be an escape, and sometimes that means that we use ingredients that people aren't familiar with. So I think that we sometimes have a different experience because people are a little bit intimidated by some of the ingredients that we use.
Yeah.
Like we've got a cocktail that's a vodka-based cocktail, but then it's also, they see vodka and grapefruit, and usually people are like, okay, yeah, those things I know. And then they see vanilla and allspice and lime, and they're like, how do these things all taste together? What's allspice? Help! But like, I feel like the biggest way to bridge that gap is also just to be like, if some of these things sound good to you, give the whole thing a try. And if
Right.
you hate it, then we'll go in a different direction.
Yeah.
But like most of the time they try it and they're like, by golly, it's delicious. And like it's again just about like creating that comfortable, like these things and now you're gonna know these things and it's all gonna be okay.
When you're curating a bar menu, is that something that you really have to balance between getting things on there that are accessible, that that people are going to like, but also sort of pushing the bounds of your creativity? What are you thinking about when you're crafting the menu that you're putting in front of people? I know at most bars you can also order off the menu classic cocktails, but I know for a lot of bar managers there's a lot of thought and reasoning into why those drinks are on there. What are you guys trying to do when you're crafting those menus?
There's always a vodka cocktail.
Vodka,
Is that just
vodka
because-
citrus? Vodka citrus.
And that's because people just love vodka?
They're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about, love per se.
Do you guys have any thoughts on vodka itself? Is that sort of something that's like, oh, well, all the normies go and get vodka drinks?
I have had some really delicious vodka in my day. I haven't been able to find it since, but
Yeah.
I've consumed it. It's delicious. Vodka is a very approachable. It's like having we have High Life ponies at Shore Leave, things that are approachable that people can recognize. And some people just do better with vodka. I think I have had experiences with some alcohols that I'm like, I probably shouldn't have that much of that again. Vodka is one that I think that people have all been like, I think vodka's gonna be the spirit that I should stick with.
Yeah.
And I can respect that.
Why does vodka sometimes get this sort of bad rep with people? Not everybody, but there are definitely some people that I'm friends with who sort of put their nose up at vodka. Have you guys experienced that, or is that just the people I'm hanging out with?
It's the vanilla.
It's the vanilla.
It's
okay.
vanilla. Yeah.
Vanilla ice cream.
It's vanilla ice cream. And you know what? I love vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
Right? But other people who are really into Rocky Road want a lot more going on in their ice cream. And
Yeah.
that's basically what
Here's
I
the
have to
thing
say about
about vanilla, though, is if you don't put vanilla in any baked good, it tastes bad. It adds a level
that. Metaphor over, talking about vanilla now.
Yeah. I was like, is that like vodka too? If I add it to anything, it becomes better?
It's something that
Yes.
people always condemn as this very simple flavor, but vanilla is complex and interesting and adds so much, and it has the capacity to boost the flavor profiles of other things that are in a dessert or a drink, whatever. And that's part of what it's about is taking these little things where sure, maybe you're approaching people with something that they feel comfortable with, but then you're adding other ingredients, little dashes and dabs here of stuff that they don't expect that gives them something that they're comfortable with and that's unique and new and fun and tastes good.
Okay, so there's always a vodka drink on the menu. What else are you sort of looking for when you're putting together this menu? It's kind of the first impression people are getting of your bar in many ways.
I think so much of it depends on the concept
Yeah.
of the place, right? I mean, if, they open Shorely with a bunch of whiskey Manhattan variations, everyone would be like, what? So much of it depends. So, I do think that in general, people are getting more adventurous. They're more willing to try things. I also kind of credit that to the Food Network and all of this stuff, in that they're learning more about different food ingredients and willing to try stuff, and that's kind of washing over a little bit to the bar side of things. But within the past 2 years, I built 2 radically different menus. One at Better Sorts, which was hyper culinary, weird ingredients. We had, in our opening menu, it had kale and collards and, a pear thing served in a thing. I mean, some ingredients that people were like, what is this doing in a cocktail? And people went for it.
Yeah.
They really did. This was in downtown Boston in a high-end hotel, looking for a, cutting edge, top 50 bar program. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to ask people to kind of push their boundaries a little bit, while also giving it, so much of that was about training your staff to make it as approachable as possible. Like being like, oh yeah, like there's kale in this drink, but it's also pineapple and lime. So it's just like your morning smoothie, but a daiquiri, so things like that of being able to kind of push the envelope, but while still making people, say like, this isn't that weird, right? And things like that. But, that's a very different program than, say, the one at Variety, which is all about like fun and cheeky and using, kind of yoo-hoo and like all these kind of silly ingredients, because, we have a comedy club in the back and we're doing something that we just want people to kind of feel good and not have to think too hard, and
Right.
they're coming in for a laugh. So much of it is really, greater than just, you have a menu. You really have to start with, okay, well, what are you going for? What neighborhood are you in? And things like that.
Yeah, why are people, like, I feel like a big thing we learned at Shore Leave this past winter is that, like, you can put up any number of, like, complex and interesting drinks, or, like, you could have a menu that's, like, 5 riffs on a vodka soda, but, like, people are coming to our space for the fun of it. Like, it's for an escape. It's, like, so for us, a big learning curve, I think, was to lean into the fun of what we're doing. And, like, you can still have really complex, interesting drinks and, like, present them in an easy-to-digest format. And then the folks that are there to, like, not really think about what's going on, it's easy for them to, like, engage and have fun. And then the folks who are there who do want to sit down and talk about, like, 20 different kinds of rum, like, the staff has the knowledge to do that, too. So, like, you can kind of vacillate between, like, highbrow, lowbrow, while still, like, putting a lot of care and effort into what you're doing.
When you guys aren't working and you're going out and drinking, besides Atwood's Tavern, where do you guys like to go for a good drink?
I live across the street, so I really do come here.
We didn't plan that. But Atwood's Tavern, grab a drink.
Yeah.
Hannah?
I really enjoy going to Rebel Rebel.
That's also in Bow Market, right?
That
It
is
is.
also right. I drink pretty simply when I'm not at work. I drink pretty simply overall. I like
Yeah.
a bottle of wine, a glass of whiskey,
Yeah.
a Negroni.
When you're working around cocktails and you're making them all day, do you sort of have just this, like, I don't want anything complex. I want something straight and simple. It's sort of like when I would work a long shift, I remember I would want the most basic, straightforward food. I could get anything I want on the menu, but at the end of the day, I just wanted meat, cheese, and some sort of carbohydrate would be very nice.
100.
A burger, exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like all the bartenders are going out for meat and beer and a glass of wine, I think, for the most part. I think that if you're like going to a different city or things like that, maybe it's a little bit different, where you actually want to kind of like see the scene and explore and have cocktails, but like in your own backyard after your shift, you're having a shot and a beer.
Can you tell the difference between a regional scene? Like, if you went to San Francisco, are there things that are going to stand out that you're sort of like, wow, they're not really doing this in Boston, or this isn't as big in Boston? Is everywhere doing this tiki bar style, or when you go to Chicago, is it like they're like, hey, our thing is like making bars that look like airports and... Well, I'm just asking. Everybody's got different concepts. It's like you go to Los Angeles. Is there like a polar bear bar? I mean, is there...
I think
Clearly, I'm not a restaurateur.
I was like, do I need to travel more? Is this out
Where are the polar bears?
Are there different? What is it like when you go visit different scenes and maybe they have an airport bar? That'd be nice.
I think that the trends just hit in waves in different cities, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
like both San Francisco and Chicago have strong tiki programs that have been around much longer than anything in Boston, much longer. And certainly like that's what you see, like different cities, some of it is size-based. Boston is not that big. You know, some of it is based culturally. They kind of get to different places at different times. But I think the trends are always kind of moving, and you can kind of be like, oh, I see this starting to happen in Boston, but it's clearly already like full-blown in San Francisco, right? Or vice versa, you might, go to, Atlanta or even DC and be like, oh, cool, they're just starting to do this thing that we've been doing for a little while. So I think that some of it is kind of all the same trends, but just in a little bit different timing.
I think that with like the ability to process a lot of information and read what other bars are doing now, it's easier to kind of like try those things out where you work or in your city, and then it kind of depends on the consumer. There are days that we're like, maybe Boston doesn't want a tiki bar,
Right.
and we think that it's necessary and good, and I think that it could have a tiki bar, and you do have a tiki bar. It's called Shore Leave. But there was like a lot of tiki nights, and there were a lot of like in the last couple of years people doing like tiki Tuesdays or tiki Sundays, and they would emphasize tiki drinks, and so there was like a testing ground for that. So you can see these things happening, and you can see them being successful other places, and then it's just kind of you relying on the people that live in this city to be ready for it.
Am I wrong to say that there is almost a surplus of incredibly talented and award-winning bartenders in Boston?
I'd say yes, unless
Yeah.
you are trying to hire for a bar right now. Because we're all understaffed.
What is it about Boston in particular? No offense to everybody here, but it's not necessarily known for being the most hip place for a while. It was known for its universities, its biotechnology, Ted Kennedy. Not necessarily the place that screams hip cocktail. But what happened in Boston that you have this massive talents of bartenders and chefs? How did the food culture here really get to be? And what is it about this place that attracts a lot of this talent?
Grad students. We're
Yeah.
all grad students. Just,
The university culture that really does give a big
honestly,
edge up here.
that's my experience. Like,
Yeah.
I came here for grad school.
What were you studying?
I have a master's degree in gastronomy, but like, I don't plan on using it. What I do plan on doing is bartending for the rest of my life. But like, it's a lot of very intelligent people who are like already prone to working really hard and like want to learn on their own and like want to connect with other people and talk about different ideas. And like, I'm not saying that we're all grad students. That was mostly a joke. But like, it's kind of a part of the ethos of the city.
Yeah, but you get this very educated population that starts working in restaurants. They start to really enjoy what they're doing. And would you guys both agree that that's really left a big imprint on Boston?
I'd say it's Boston has this really great unique intersection of highly educated and like a strong blue collar and hard working mentality. Like everybody I know in Boston works 17 days a week.
Yes.
They just work so hard. You're like, when's your day off? And they're like, I am free on Monday between 4 and 6 p.m. And you're just like, okay,
Here's my snack
it really
break.
is. And I think that when it comes to, like where like Boston has like excelled on, a national stage or in competitions and things like that is like, there's a little chip on our shoulder. I think we feel like we have something to prove.
Yeah.
Because, we have gotten this rap for being kind of boring. And, sometimes we can be, but I think that we also, have a lot to say and I think that, have a lot to prove.
Yeah.
I mean, circling back to Speed Rack, the winners of nationals have been from New England how many years in the last, 5, I think? some, like a significant portion. I don't know the number.
We
Yeah.
dominate
Well, I mean, that
Bacardi
was what struck
competition.
me
Yeah.
is that when I travel to other cities or I have friends coming in from other cities, they're blown away by the fact that you can basically walk into any bar in Boston and you can find a bartender that knows most classic cocktails. It seems like there's a very strong cocktail culture. People here are really proud of it. But I wanted to move to you. You guys each put a cocktail on the menu today, right?
Yes. Yes, you are featuring some cocktails that we all chose. So I combined two things that I love: a Negroni and rum. I drink a lot of rum now. It's really nice to have a glass of scotch in my hands right now. But just opening Shore Leave and experiencing what rum is and what the category of rum has to offer, which is very wide and variant, and rum is having a resurgence right now. I think that we've all had our moments with Malibu.
Lots of good times.
Lots of interesting times. But I think that we've all found there's cocktails on our menu at Shore Leave that people are like, I really like an old fashioned. I'm like, I have a couple options for you. They just have rum bases. And because I drink Negronis, maybe, no, not too much. Not enough. I really enjoy the just throwing rum in there instead of gin. And it's a nice, like, colder months variant of a Negroni, a little less herbaceous, more rounded and smooth.
Do you find that rum adds that warm depth to a lot of drinks that you don't get from, say, a spirit like gin or whiskey? Really heats me up whenever I drink it. But particularly in gin, do you think that it adds this warmer feeling to it?
Depends on the rum.
Yeah.
But the dark rum that we're using tonight in this one definitely does.
Yeah.
Dark rums and whiskeys have a lot in common, I think, flavor-wise.
And you put rum in your drink as well. You have a Kodak daiquiri.
Kodiak
on the menu.
daiquiri.
Kodiak.
It's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? That's a classic cocktail, right?
The daiquiri is. The Kodiak daiquiri is, I love that you think it's a classic because it's one of my creations a long time ago at Eastern Standard.
Yeah.
So you maybe had it enough that you're like, oh, this
You
must
know
just
what?
be a thing.
I had it the day I graduated from college. I went to BU, and me and my dad went down.
There you go.
And I remember sitting there, and I asked the server, I said I had a daiquiri, but it wasn't a daiquiri, and they were like, you had a Kodiak.
That's a Kodiak. Yeah. Oh, I love it. So Kodiak daiquiri, which is actually named for my mentor.
The Kodiak Bear.
Kevin Martin, whose nickname at Eastern Standard was Kodiak. So he when he left us, he went to Privateer. So I wanted to make a drink with Privateer. That was, a little celebration for him. So we ran that on the menu at Eastern Standard a long time. But it's a really simple riff on a daiquiri that just kind of takes it to another level. And for me, I love this drink because it shows that one small change, a little tweak here or there, can really just completely transform a classic. I think a lot of the style of cocktails that I'm known for are for like putting wacky ingredients and like culinary stuff and all this crazy stuff. But I also just like a nice simple daiquiri, and this is one of them. So it's with rum and cinnamon and lime and a dash of Peychaud's bitters.
Rachel, you put the rare spirit of mezcal. Yeah. I'm not saying that to be obnoxious. I thought that was how you say it. But you put mezcal in your drink. Can you tell us a little bit about how mezcal differs from tequila?
Yeah, I mean, so it's like, since we're in a bar with a lot of scotch, sort of the difference between the way a peated scotch drinks versus unpeated. You've got they're both agave-based spirits, but mezcal's gonna have a really like savory, smoky quality. There's a lot going on in there. That's a whole world unto itself. But
well, they take it and they smoke it underground, right?
It's
yes. So they generally put it in pits, and instead of in tequila production, they are usually drying out. You have to dry out the agave hearts, the piñas. They usually do it in these big ovens that are just steam powered. But in most mezcal production, not all, they generally bury the piñas. They cook it like you would roast a pig. right?
Wow.
And so they're doing it that way, essentially.
Is there a risk, though, that with the popularity of mezcal growing, that we're going to run out of the piñas that we need to supply the demand? Is that something within the hospitality community that they're talking about?
Yes.
Yes, huge problem. Huge problem, sustainability of mezcal,
Yeah.
whole other podcast.
There isn't like some sort of a, you know what, we figured out the solution to that. I mean, what is it? It doesn't seem like there's a workaround to that. You really need to take a long time to harvest those, and is it just we're going to run out of supply for a little while before we get it back?
Yeah, no, please.
As I say, climate change also just adds another, like, it complicates it even further because there's no real consistency necessarily going forward in, like, growing regions in terms of weather and temperature, and, like, that also has an impact. Like, there's no way of knowing if it's going to be sustainable, not just in terms of how long it takes to grow this, but, like, if we still can in, like, 20 years.
Yeah, there are a lot of efforts happening right now, especially with the Mexican government and people petitioning it to have, stricter rules to make sure that things aren't being repealed that are important to the sustainability. But yeah, I mean, who knows? We may be in a place not too far from now where it's like mezcal is a sometimes food. It doesn't get to be an every. It can be more of a treat. But I think that will also kind of happen on its own as prices go up, as things become scarcer. But I think what's really important is that there are measures put in place that protect the land, that protect the farmers, and so that people aren't trying to rush something or there's all sorts of horror stories, I'm sure.
I would encourage people. I think that a lot of us pay a lot of attention to where our food is coming from. And I think that we should do the same thing with where our spirits are coming from. So if you see a mezcal that is very inexpensive, question it.
Yeah.
It might not be a good product. It might be coming from a company that has bad practices. Don't take spirit drinking lightly if you can. Support good companies that are doing good things, that are doing sustainable practices, just as we do if you eat beef and you want to support sustainable practices, you research that and you maybe drink it in moderation or eat it in moderation. If we're going with the beef analogy, maybe you only have a steak once a month. Maybe you only drink mezcal once a month because you want the people that are doing the sustainable things to succeed.
It's like if you're buying fair trade coffee and fair trade chocolate, and obviously it's not as easy because there isn't like a big label slapped on the outside of every spirit bottle that's like, the people that grew this are actually making money off of it. Wow. But it's also not impossible to figure that out for yourself.
Well, and actually in tequila and mezcal there is a label. It's called the NOM, N-O-M, and then it's a series of numbers, and you can look it up, and it can tell you where that actually came from.
And is that something that the Mexican government does
Yes.
itself? And we here, though, we have a pretty robust distillation community, I guess you'll call it. I noticed, particularly in the Kodiak, you're using Privateer rum. Privateer is a name that I hear a lot. People are very proud of the fact that it's right here in Massachusetts. What is it about Privateer rum that is giving it this strong reputation right now?
The practices that they put into it.
Yeah.
For a long time, rum would, from beginning to end, take about 24 hours to start the process and put it into a bottle and ship it onto the market. That's a very short amount of time to make something of any quality. Maggie Campbell, who's the head distiller and president at Privateer, waits about 3 to 6 months to bottle their white rum because she wants it to have time to settle and flavors to develop. Recently, they even started sourcing their molasses from someplace that has sustainable and really forward-thinking care of the people that are growing their sugar, that are processing their sugar, and supporting like-minded businesses. So from top to bottom, from like what is going into the bottle down to where are they getting the sugar product that they're distilling. They are taking such great care with what they use and what they're putting out.
And are there other distilleries that people should be looking out for when they go out to drink, that maybe they ask the bartender, hey, try that? I know Short Path is around here, and Bully Boy as well. Would you guys put those also on a similar tier to Privateer? A second tier to Privateer?
Here's what I'll say. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that Privateer has been so good about doing everything with such clear intention, and I can't speak to the intention of. I'm not as familiar with kind of that behind the scenes look. I'd say Privateer has become, a favorite of bartenders for good reason. I think that, it's great to support local, but honestly, like, in the spirits world, like, nothing's actually really all that local, right? Like, there's a difference between getting, a local, tomato, right? It tastes better. It was grown right here. It's more sustainable because it's not shipping things. But, a bottle of gin is still getting juniper from, halfway across the world. The glass bottles are coming from wherever and stuff like that. So for me, it's really more about, okay, well, yes, they might be the local guy, but are they sourcing all of their ingredients with intention? Are they, finding ways to be more sustainable and things like that? And I think that, to me, that's sort of more important than if they're necessarily in my backyard or not. If they are, bonus. But ultimately, I'm just looking for companies that are doing right by their employees and by the environment.
Privateer's sugar does not come from Massachusetts.
I believe it's Guatemala.
It's very hard to grow sugar cane in Massachusetts.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we'll give them a pass on that one. We have some questions from the audience. You guys want to take some audience questions?
Sure do.
Yeah. This one should be easy. Jeremiah wants to know, lighting cocktails on fire, overrated or underrated? I think I know what Jeremiah thinks, but...
Underrated.
Underrated. So you want to light
Light
more
'em up.
cocktails?
Yeah.
As someone who used to be very scared of fire, there's something really really nice about breaking out a blowtorch and being like, yeah, this is my tool.
What does lighting, does it do anything besides just make it look cool?
There's an aromatic
Yeah.
element.
Okay.
Yeah. And we taste with our noses too. So.
Right.
So the cocktail that I typically do with a flamed orange peel, where I squeeze the oil from the peel of the fruit into a flame, and it changes the way that tastes. It changes the way that the drink smells, and kind of adds the smoky quality that's already going on in there. But
Have any of you assembled the Flaming Jerry before?
No.
For those who don't know, Flaming Jerry, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it is a drink that is passed between two canisters while being lit on fire, so it looks like a continuous string of fire, correct?
Blue Blazer.
Blue Blazer, what am I thinking of?
Not sure. Something else.
Who's Jerry?
I
And why was
did-
he on fire?
Well, it was
He did a Blue
popularized by
Blazer
Jerry
wrong.
Thomas.
Okay, I was
it is
like,
on
is this like
fire.
some
You're in the right area. I one time with a whole bunch of people attempted a Blue Blazer, and it was so terrifying that I think my arc was it was such a mini little thing.
Oop, and we're done.
Yeah.
Is that something that I could go into Eastern Standard and ask
No.
for? Okay. Is that could I go anywhere and ask for a Blue Blazer?
No.
I don't know. Drink.
No, I would say that I don't know, maybe someone's gonna have a Blue Blazer night, and
Yeah.
but you need special tins, because they have to
Right.
be heat proof and have handles on them and stuff like that. So it is a lot, but I don't know. Maybe Atwood wants to have a Blue Blazer night.
Well, that's why you get that's why you get the Flaming Jerry instead. Man, I feel like I was in Memento or something.
I was for a second you were talking about the Flaming Moe's. Wasn't that
What's a Flaming Moe?
Wasn't that on The Simpsons? I'm pretty sure there's
I believe so, yeah.
There's a Flaming Moe. Yeah.
We ran with it. We'll make that drink. That's the nice part about cocktails, right? Anything you imagine can be. Right? Hannah?
Sure.
Yeah.
Might not be good, but sure.
So,
Beef juice.
you say beet or beef?
Beef.
It does
Circling
exist.
back to that.
Beef
It
juice
actually
cocktail.
does exist.
Actually,
And I don't eat beef. And when I was younger, and a very, very iconic bartender came to Eastern Standard, he made a drink with beef stock in it, and I was so bummed that I could not have one of his drinks, but also very confused.
what you guys used to do though, where you could take the bone marrow and take a shot right out of it.
Bone
correct?
marrow luge.
Yes.
Yes.
That's still a thing.
That's still
That's
a thing.
forever a thing.
100%.
That's
It's
decadent.
delicious.
And incredible at the same time.
No better
favorite
way,
snack.
I mean, says the vegetarian, no better way than to finish your bone marrow than with a shot down.
Sherry.
That made me think. I've seen on menus before fat washed cocktail, bacon washed cocktail.
Yes.
What are you doing with that bacon, and what are you washing it with?
I mean, nothing gets washed per se. Essentially, you're just adding fat into a spirit, and then like you freeze it. The fat will congeal on top. You straight it out the next day, and so then you get a spirit that's been like imbued.
Infuse.
with-
It's a way to, because so alcohol and fat generally don't go together. So it's a way to infuse those flavors.
Okay.
Is the technique that it's called. But there will be a butter washed cocktail on the opening Noir menu.
Hey, all right. Jack wants to know, how do you make your old fashioned? It's such a simple drink, yet every time I order one, it's different.
I think that that is one of those cocktails that there's a lot of traditions behind, and that you will find some people that think that their way is a little bit better, but even regionally it is different. If you go to Wisconsin, I believe they make it with brandy, and they top it with cola.
What?
Yes. Cola, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, whichever one they have in their bar, just a splash. Some people muddle. I think the muddling tradition comes from the Prohibition.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the classic cocktails originated, right?
If there's orange in them.
Yes.
Really?
If there's grenadine or orange in them, probably in Prohibition. Think about it this way. Things that were pre-Prohibition are things that tend to have a lot more spirit in them and like a dash of gum syrup and a hint of lemon, right? Like that. And you're just like, wait, I'm sorry, you want me to put like 3 ounces of gin and a bar spoon of lemon in this? Okay.
'Cause it was-
So,
it was just an
that's what it was
illegal
called.
drink, yeah.
Well, no, this is pre-Prohibition, right?
Oh, okay.
During Prohibition, it kind of goes the opposite way, where now all of a sudden it's like, let's cover up the taste of this stuff that was made like in a bathtub because it's really awful, and so we're gonna add like all
much
of this
sugar.
stuff to it. Yeah. So especially I would say grenadine and orange juice in a classic cocktail, Prohibition era for sure. And that's kind of why pre-Prohibition old fashions were generally, so the original kind of way an old fashioned came about was originally it was just called a cocktail. And a cocktail was spirit, sugar, water, bitters was what was in a cocktail. And eventually there were new things that people were mixing. So people started saying, oh, I'd like a cocktail old fashioned. I want that old style of cocktail. Later on, when people started ordering old fashions, they started muddling this fruit in it because now the whiskey quality wasn't as good and things like that. So that kind of happened at that time. But the old fashioned has sort of evolved and come in all these different waves and stuff like that. Yeah.
So to get back to that question.
Oh, yeah.
I like rye.
Yeah.
I like a little bit stronger flavor if I'm going with an old fashioned. I personally do 3 dashes of Angostura bitters, 2 dashes of orange bitters, about 1/4 ounce of a rich simple syrup, usually using Demerara sugar, 2 ounces of that rye whiskey, and then I like a lemon and an orange twist.
I like that. Sounds good to me.
My recipe is the same, minus 1 dash of Ango and just with a lemon twist.
Ooh.
Mine's the 2 Ango, 2 orange. I also prefer rye, and I like a lemon and an orange twist.
I feel like you guys are like that scene in American Psycho where they throw out their business cards and they just start comparing them to each other right now. Nim, we all know Nim. Nim wants to know.
Yeah.
Nim wants to know, a great aunt passes away and leaves you an unexpectedly large inheritance. What is your passion project? A little grim, but
Oh, that's a good question. No, that's a good question. I like it, Nim. Thank you. You're welcome. You can keep your job.
Do you guys have a passion project that you guys secretly keep tucked away? I have one. That's my ideal bar.
To never work again. No, I would probably, it'd probably be a very small bar. It would either be on a beach or in a very cold climate, depending on...
Very different places.
Very different. I'm not sure. I haven't thought about this. I don't think...
It's like
what if
Hawaii
I
or
win
Minnesota.
the lottery?
Depends on property taxes.
No, I like an intimate setting. I like a bar where I can connect with each of my guests or connect them with each other.
Yeah.
I like making connections happen.
Where everybody knows your name.
Yeah, sure. I would probably do a lot of wine at that bar, and some really just delicious sippable spirits.
Oh, man. It would also be very small.
For those of you who don't know, Shore Leave is huge.
Massive.
How many seats is it?
The bar itself has 40,
Oh.
and then there's a lot of tables.
Two bartenders for 40 seats?
Sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Well, no. I mean,
It depends
a
on
lot of the time
Yeah.
there's two. But anyway,
Small
small bars. Also intimate. It would be an ice cream shop in the front, bar in the back, because I like a little whimsy.
Can you get ice cream at the bar?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, okay. Well, that's what I would want.
And then a lot of cocktails that I want to drink, so boozy.
Yeah.
With like maybe some fruit juice somewhere.
Would you do like a boozy milkshake? Does that make sense? Would that work?
I mean, theoretically, sure, if it's an ice cream shop and a bar, it should work, but no, I would not do that.
Moving on.
What I'm gonna say is, I don't think my passion project's a bar.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You're taking the money and going somewhere else.
Well, okay. If I have to like do a thing with it, like businessy or something, then that's one answer. If I just get to go and like travel the world, then that for sure.
Yeah.
But like, come on. Yeah, not that. But honestly, I'm truly not saying this to whatever. But I would start some sort of organization that supports hospitality and particular like healthcare issues in hospitality. And including that in like mental health, especially, which is sort of where my passion lies.
Yeah.
So I know there are actually a couple women in Toronto, Montreal, somewhere in Canada that recently started a project for mental health and stuff, and I just think that that's so cool, and that would just honestly be like so much less stressful than running a bar.
And mental health in the hospitality sector, that's something that I think is a growing, not necessarily a movement, but I think people are talking a lot more about that. And for people who don't know, I mean, what are some of the stresses that hospitality workers face that the clientele that they're serving might not be aware of? And I mean, what are some ways that the guests can make it a little bit easier to be a good guest at a bar?
Don't be a dick.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that, I would say that most of the issues aren't necessarily guest related.
Yeah.
Yes, there can be some stressors. Yes, people can be jerks. I've been called every name in the book, all that. But that's really not as much, the issue is that for a long time, working in hospitality has not been conducive to essentially work-life balance. It's very, very long hours. It's hard on your body. That can be hard on your mental health. It can lead to, very unhealthy behaviors as well. And you're around, alcohol all the time. Which is a depressant, and I know, and we love it, and we and for some of us we have no problem balancing that and making healthy choices, but for a lot of people they do.
Is consistent scheduling a problem too that a lot of people face? What does that do to your work-life balance when you're never completely sure what your schedule will be on a week-to-week basis?
You can't plan for anything. You can't make a doctor's appointment. You can't see a friend. You can't go home to your there's just like no way of knowing what you're going to be able to do next week, and like that's rough.
Alex would like to know. I like this question. Why do bars have such loud music? Yeah.
Segue.
Loud music.
It depends on the bar.
It depends on the bar.
It depends on the night. I work a lot of Monday nights at Shore Leave, and I don't play loud music because there's about 20 people in that bar. And they're probably not looking for a loud music scene. I also think that by Friday night at 10 o'clock, when a lot of the people in the bar have had a few drinks, they're feeling some things, and they've had a long week at work, and they're like ready to go. And so you turn Rihanna on, and you just feel out the vibe of the restaurant, and you match the level of the music with the people that are in the bar.
I did that because I wanted to end on this note, and this would have related more to the other one, but I wanted to get that question in. So Anonymous would like to ask, as a female server, I often see men get up from my tables and go to the bar to order from a man or ask a man about drink recommendations. How do you typically handle microaggressions like this, or not second guess your own competence?
Struggle is real. I can't even tell you how many times people have tried to order from the bar back, right? That's such a common thing.
Every Saturday night.
That, yeah, exactly. That question your own knowledge and things like that. I think in a way that's why women are incredible at what they do, because they have a little bit more to prove when it comes to like the knowledge, when it comes to all of that. I think that some of it depends on the place you work. But I think that you should always feel empowered to say, I'm happy to come and take your order and answer any questions you may have, assuming that you feel comfortable doing so. There's no reason not to tell that guest, hey, you don't need to get up. You can say it in a way that is meant to make them think you're just trying to be hospitable while you're trying to be like, dude, right? But I think that there's no reason not to, at least try to stand up for yourself and do something like that. And also, look to your coworkers and look to, your management and things like that to help cultivate a culture where, that's not cool.
I think that this is one of those moments where you really want to create a good team and you want to have open conversations with people. If you have a good working relationship with that man that gets all the orders for bourbon neat, if that's what it is, just tell them that it frustrates you. And maybe he'll redirect them back to you. We have one male bartender at Shore Leave, and he's very good at supporting us and redirecting and saying like, no, each of these women is just as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable, and a badass. Like, they are just as good, if not better than I am. And so building a team of people around you that does support you, and management that supports you, and expressing the things that frustrate you in those moments. Personally, I also am a big fan of the passive-aggressive jokes. Like, oh, why are you over there talking to Marty about bourbon? He drinks dirty martinis. Never touched bourbon a day in his life. Or, hey, why don't you order me one too, and we'll shoot it together. But I'm here for the laughs. Yeah. Trying to put people at ease. That is hard. That is one of the harder things to do. Also, maybe just letting your bar back flounder for a minute and just standing back and watching them try to answer questions that you know the answers to that they can't. And you just go, oh, that's cute.
And then go up to say, did you have a question I can help you with? It's as simple as that.
Yes. That's usually my move. Is I suss him out, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm the one with all of the power here. I can help you. Let's go."
This guy actually can't touch the alcohol.
He'd love to, but only when he gets my permission.
See, we ended with a laugh. You were all worried over there. We're going to end on a dark note. We ended with a laugh. Anyway, Hannah, Naomi, Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time to come out, talking with us tonight. Thank you for coming out to the Atwood's interview. Nope, right there. Thank you for coming out to the Atwood's interview series tonight.